Welcome to the MyJo Experience, a podcast designed to help you go further faster and do more with less. Every journey is unique. At MyJo, we celebrate taking my journey, my way. Learn more about MyJo by visiting joinmyjo.com and follow MyJo on all social channels at MyJo XP. Here is our host, Daniel Workman.
Welcome to the MyJo Experience, a podcast designed to help you go further, faster, and do more with less. Every journey is unique, and at MyJo, we celebrate taking my journey, my way. And on this episode, we are joined by Ron Patel. Ron, welcome to the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
So for the audience, tell us a little bit about who you are before we kind of jump back into your story and your journey to get here.
Who am I? That's a complex question, Daniel. I am a 44-year-old recovering entrepreneur that actually was in the entrepreneurial world for a long time, starting my own businesses, running my own businesses, most of which failed miserably. Had a couple successes in there, though, and now run a professional soccer club in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is called New Mexico United. It's a second division club. And we've been going into our 7th season now as we record this in 2025. And I'm a proud father of 3. I have two stepchildren that are out of the nest, and an adopted baby girl who is now 16 months old, and surprisingly sleeping 11, 12 hours a night. So I feel pretty lucky.
You are blessed. We were blessed with that scenario too with our kids. I had other family who weren't so lucky in the sleep department, but I'm with you. It may not be normal, but it is enjoyable when they
sleep. I'm very lucky. So
yeah. So take us back to kind of your earlier years to kind of build up towards kind of who Ron is today and what you do and your family life and all that. What were some of the things in your earlier life that kind of shaped you? Was there a teacher or maybe a dad, something that kind of really, shaped that maybe entrepreneurial piece or this drive to do something kind of out of the box? Because running a soccer club, even though it may not be the same as, the serial entrepreneur, it's still not your run-of-the-mill, cubicle office job. It's a different field and a different business that a lot of people are not familiar with. So what were some things that shaped you?
A lot of things. I'm lucky and I'm blessed to have the upbringing I had, and I will add that, like, even though don't own my own business anymore, this is a very entrepreneurial company, and we all get to be entrepreneurial in our jobs, and we're all encouraged, and I encourage our staff to fail forward, make mistakes, because that's how you're pushing the boundaries. But back to your question, obviously, ton of credit to my family. I'm so lucky to have 2 parents that have been married now 50 years,
Wow.
Still flirt like a high school couple. My sister and I got to do their renewal ceremony of their vows this last fall back in England where we grew up. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and we did a little ceremony with family and friends. So definitely my parents shaped me, and my sister too, which I'll talk about, I guess. My dad was always working late. He ran entertainment clubs, which back in the 70s and 80s were bingo clubs. I know that sounds weird. In England in the 70s and 80s, bingo was like a high stakes business, and you had to have a membership to the bingo club. You would play bingo, and then after bingo, they would turn into nightclubs. And they had fruit machines, which were like the precursor to slot machines that you could play on. So my dad would always tell me he would work in the afternoon. He'd come home, and I remember having dinner with my dad every night. And my mom, and then when my sister was born, her too. And then he'd put me to bed, and then he'd go back to work and would work until 1, 2 in the morning, and then that was his life. That brought us to North America, where he continued to work in that industry, but more so on casinos. And so he got into the casino business, and he was a very successful operator of tribal casinos for many years until he retired a few years back. He worked for tribes in upstate New York, Washington, California, and Arizona, and was very, very good at what he did. My mom was actually the entrepreneur. She was a tax and accounting specialist, still does my taxes every year. I'm getting my stuff this year. I'm that lucky. And so she had her own tax and accounting business for many years, sold it a couple years ago when she retired. They now live in Prescott, Arizona, and I'm lucky to still have them in my lives. And then my sister, who was really my best friend and still is my best friend, I shouldn't say was. My sister was just always that person that was there for me because we moved so much. I would have to make new friends and start over again. And the first couple times it was upsetting, but then you get used to it. And I think that really shaped me as well. So I had my sister who was always there. And then I had my parents who one was very focused on his career, but put family first. And then my mom, who was an entrepreneur, but obviously put family first as well. So that really shaped me. And then having to meet people and make friends, like I always joke that I can find a common denominator with anyone on this earth. And that's what I go into every conversation with someone that I meet for the first time is searching for that common denominator. Because as soon as you have that common denominator with someone, now you got something in common. And it could be anything. It could be somewhere you've lived, something you like, what soccer team you support, your favorite color. It doesn't matter what it is, what you do for a living. You tell me what your occupation is. I'll find some sort of common denominator that I have to that. And now you're more comfortable talking to me. And now we can talk about what we're going to talk about. So I think that's really what shaped me was my family. But I've had some great mentors and bosses and a business partner too over the years that I ran businesses with. So they shaped me as well. But I think the biggest thing that shaped me is my family, and moving around the world so much has really made me the guy that never shuts up on podcasts like this, right?
Hey, I love talking to you. I remember when we first met years ago, and I've always watched and admired your career as you worked through the soccer side of business in addition to or on top of your entrepreneurial side. I love a couple of things you said there. First, talking about encouraging everyone to fail and fail forward and learn from that. Like that is a great way to lead and to encourage people to, you don't want to take careless risk, but you're
Right.
not going to really, in a soccer match, you're not going to score goals without risk. You're not going to win in life without risk. So, it's okay to try and fail. Really, the ultimate failure is quitting. So as long as you keep learning and going forward, I love that. And then your point about finding common ground, finding something in common that where you can relate to relationally, etc., is just a great way to frame networking and relationships. For you, looking back on your career to this point, is there a moment or a series of moments that you would say, hey, this was like my first kind of big break or pivotal moment that, was your first kind of breakthrough in this trajectory towards present day?
I think there was multiple inflection points, and some were big breaks, and some were enormous mistakes, as you just alluded to, learning from that I learned from and really shaped my path. And don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near the end of it, right? There's still a ton of learning to do. I learned from every single person. I learned from the cashier at the grocery store. I learned from the student that comes in and wants an internship with us. But then I also learned from my mentors and friends that are in positions of their career that I'm trying to aspire to. So I'm always learning. There were multiple points along the way. I think back to when I went, at 26, I had moved to, I'll give you the fast backstory. So I moved around a lot, settled in Arizona when I was a sophomore in high school, went to Corona del Sol High School, go Aztecs, in Tempe, Arizona, and then went to Arizona State University. I had a lot of fun in college, like a lot of kids do at Arizona State. But I worked hard to have that fun. My parents were helping me with the in-state tuition, but they said, hey, if you want to be in a fraternity, that's on you, dude. Like, you got to figure out how to pay for that.
Right.
And you want to go out drinking, like, you got to go pay for that. So I actually had 3 jobs in college. I was waiting tables. Sorry, I was learning sales as in a call center that was like this telemarketing thing that I was learning. And then I was waiting tables at a Mexican restaurant called Macayo's, which still exists. If anyone tunes in from Phoenix, they know Macayo's. And at their Depot Cantina location right by ASU. And then I was a a bouncer at a nightclub called Acme Roadhouse. And I was the worst bouncer ever because I was 19 and I had a fake ID myself. So anytime I would check someone and saw they had a fake ID, I wouldn't keep it. I'd give it back to them and say, come on, I got one of these, get out of here. And that was what I did to make the money. I could never do a full-time job because I had class in between these things and everything.
Sure.
But that led to realizing I was good at sales. And so I actually left school before I got my degree. So I never actually got my college degree, which shame on me. But I do have a degree from the School of Hard Knocks from running my own businesses for a long time. So I tell you that as a background because my lifelong dream when I was 26, I moved to Albuquerque from Arizona in 2004, and I was born in 1980. So I was 24 when I moved. But at 26 in 2006, I fulfilled my lifelong dream, which was to go to the World Cup and see England play in the World Cup. I paid $700 for a ticket to the game to see England play Trinidad and Tobago. I still have the ticket; it's on my desk, and paid $700 on eBay to get this because back then there wasn't StubHub, there wasn't seats.
You're right.
It was eBay, and I was told that I wouldn't even get into the game because your name on the ticket had to match your passport.
Okay.
And so I didn't have a passport that said this Middle Eastern name that was on my ticket. And so I didn't even know if I'd get into the game. By the way, sneak peek to the future. I got in. It was good. But I paid $700 for the ticket.
You couldn't come up with another fake ID for the.
I should have. No, the guys that made those fake IDs got arrested and went to federal.
Oh no.
Because I met two of the guys at Macayo's, the Mexican. It was this huge thing. It was terrible. I'm probably implicating myself in some big crime scheme here.
Hopefully the statute of limitations is over.
Yeah, I digress. So I paid $700 for the ticket. I got the flight out there. I couldn't afford the hotels. The prices were through the roof. So I found that German farmers were very entrepreneurial, and they had these fields that they all owned, and they rented out a tent, a sleeping bag, and a pillow for I think it was like €7 a day. And I found it online through the website at the World Cup. I'm like, sold. So I travel over there. I get there middle of the night after, flying out of Albuquerque to Europe is not easy. So it's 3 flights. And I get into Frankfurt, and I'm two trains, a bus, another train, another bus, a few pints on the way in some little random bars in Germany with making friends with people in the countryside. And I get there like 3 a.m. And so I get to they check me in, I get to my tent. I wake up the next morning and I was blown away. You look around, there's just tents everywhere, and everyone had their country's flag where they were from draped over their tent. And so you knew everyone was from. So you had a common denominator. You started talking to people, and I met all these people, and then we would play soccer in the daytime. They had this bread truck, which was like a food truck that would come out with bread and cheese and water. Oh, by the way, don't ever... If you want regular water, you have to say water, no gas in Germany, or else they'll give you carbonated water. I remember having too many to drink one night and the next morning chugging carbonated water and coughing it up. Like, that's not water. That's. And so when you go to Germany, water, no gas. And so that trip, I met entrepreneurs from all over the world. And I'm like, you're here for the whole month? How do you do that? Well, I have a consulting business. I do this. And I came back from that trip. I'm like, well, I don't need to be able to take a month off, but maybe I should be looking at starting my own business. And I called my friend Jared, who I went to high school with at Corona and Arizona State for college. And I said, I've been thinking about wanting to start a business. And, I was kind of losing interest in work for the company I was working for. And he's like, me too. So I said, okay, what are we going to do? So we started looking, and I identified what I think was a gap in the marketplace. Was here in Albuquerque back in 2006, nobody delivered food. Like you couldn't even get Chinese food delivered or anything. It was really pizza. It was Papa John's or Domino's. I don't think we even had a Jason's Deli or a deli that delivered back then. So there was a gap, right? I said, let's fill that gap. There was a service back at ASU called Delicious Deliveries. And so we created our version in Albuquerque, October 23rd, 2006. And I remember the first day because I remember saying to my business partner, we hired like 4 delivery drivers. Hey, we're not going to have enough. This is the greatest idea in the world. And that first day we did 1 damn order the whole day. And it was to the lady down the hall. Her name was Perla. She was a Allstate agent. I remember her well. And we bought it for her because nobody freaking ordered. So it was really -1. And at the end of that first day, we'd given up good jobs to start this thing. And I looked at Jared and I was like, what are we thinking? Like, we better get to work. Like, this is not going to work. We started it with a $35,000 loan So I went and got $17,500. He went and got $17,500. And that is way underfunded for any business, let alone the capital we need. And then we realized, well, we can't pay ourselves crap from this. Like, we need orders. We need people ordering food. We paid ourselves $100 a week that first year. And I will never forget this. And this is just a lesson I carry through to this day, is I treat my business now like this, because we would log in every Friday to our Wells Fargo account and just pray that there was $200 there so we could pay ourselves the 100. And some Fridays there wasn't.
Right.
So we'd transfer $50 each. We'd have to wait for the credit cards to come through from the weekend orders on Monday, Tuesday, and then we'd pay ourselves the other 50. And you'd probably wondering how we made a living. Delivery driver. I just delivered food all weekend. Our drivers they weren't sticking around because they weren't getting enough orders, so they would just quit. So we would just do all the deliveries. And that's how we made a living, from tips from deliveries. And we got big catering orders with an automatic 15% gratuity. That was like gold. It was like, ooh, $200 order, there's $30. You know, that was what I made in like 2 days, my salary. And so that's how so I treat my business now that I run, which is New Mexico United, as if, what if there is only $200 or less in the bank at the end of the week, right? How do we manage our business to be ready for that? So that's one thing I think that shaped me. And that was an inflection point for me, was going to the World Cup and just really sparking the idea. I don't think we have enough time today for me to tell all the stories, but I've got other stories throughout the years of things that kind of pointed me, that propelled me, and then stuff that threw me down to the tarmac and smacked my face to the ground. You know, losing $47,000 that I didn't have, by the way, that I took a line of credit out for, because I fell in love with the idea of putting on an event that I thought would make a lot of money. But I had no idea what I was doing, and I lost that money miserably. 10 years after starting Just Dine, which was the food delivery service, in 2006, in December of 2015, we got our break. And it wasn't, we partnered with the right people. They were way smarter than we were, my partner and I, and we ended up merging with them. And then in 2015, we sold the business to Grubhub, who most people have heard of now. So I've been lucky enough to start something from scratch. I've had other businesses that I've failed miserably at too. And Just Dine was definitely not a success for a long, long time. It was a 10-year kind of simmer,
Right.
But then lucky enough to be able to sell it and go through an acquisition from a publicly traded company. I mean, that was a huge education in itself. So yeah, I'm very kind of scrappy, I guess you would say, when it comes to running business. And, even right now, as we sit here, we're promoting our documentary that premieres this week on YouTube, and I'm sending it out to certain folks to get them to share so we could get people watching and getting eyeballs. Like, it's just constantly moving and finding ways to grow the business.
So for you, I got a few questions based upon some of the story you just shared. So first is, where do you think the problem-solving mindset comes from for you? Because a lot of people, when they face a setback, they just give up, or like, this is too hard. And you seem to almost take the opposite approach. I know in the moment, and having lived this myself in life, like in the moment, yes, it's hard. Yes, you're trying, how am I going to pay the bills, etc. But it takes a certain type of person who thinks a certain way to view a problem as an opportunity for a solution rather than a hurdle that I can't get over. So where does that come from for you, that mindset of viewing problems as opportunities?
Great question. I think it's just come out of necessity. And so when we started the business, the food business, it was a case of, well, look, we put a lot on the line. A lot of people told us it wouldn't work. We'll show them. And it was like, we're not going to go down. Yes, we fail forward, right? We make mistakes and learn from them. And yes, we can only pay ourselves $100 a week. Who cares? Money's money. We'll figure that out.
Right.
We did. We delivered food. We lived on we shared a house together. We brought in a third roommate to offset the rent. We made it work. And there was many nights we slept at the office because we would do late night dinner delivery orders, and then we'd have breakfast orders for catering for companies. So literally went through like 7 sets of office chairs because we would sleep in those chairs sometimes because we wouldn't get done at work till 11 and we would have to be there at 5 for a breakfast order. But I think that it was out of necessity in that, look, we're not going to let this thing go down. We've put so much into it. We've got to find a solution.
Right.
And it's not easy. And there's definitely tons of times I was scrolling through job boards looking, maybe I should just go get a job. Maybe I should give up this business, this stupid dream of food delivery making me money. Because it sounds cool. It's an attractive business to deliver food, especially when no one was doing it. There was no such thing as Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash back then. But it wasn't very lucrative. So I think it comes out of necessity in just saying, look, there's no other option here. Like, we're not going to let this thing completely fail. Yeah,
we're going to Cortez, burn the boats. We're not going back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
I think it's just a thing of, okay, we're not going to, and today, right, we're going through it right now with our stadium. We're trying to get a stadium built. Back in 2021, 4 years ago, we had a bond on the ballot that would be a $50 million bond to help subsidize a stadium. The owners were going to put in money too. And we learned very quickly, New Mexico voters do not want public funds to pay for a stadium. So instead of, taking our ball and going home, we said, okay, that's the message we hear loud and clear. So now how do we make this happen? We're going to do it privately. So for the last 4 years, we've been working on a private stadium and got the city to approve the lease and got all this stuff ready to go. And next thing you know, there's an appeal by the neighbors. And now we got to go through that. And then there's something else. And then there's something else. And so there's stuff that just happens that really works against us. And yeah, if you give up every time you have a challenge, then you're never going to get anywhere, right? And so you've just got to keep finding solutions and saying, look, we're not, the stadium will get built. It will get built, I guarantee you. And where there's a will, there's a way. So
absolutely.
Let's
go. So that leads me to my next question, which is where it's not just over, looking at problems as opportunities for solutions, but where do you get this almost like an internal just self-belief, like we're going to stick to it, we're going to get through it, we're going to turn this 10-year, for example, you're talking about the food delivery business, a 10-year overnight success that eventually gets sold. Where does that stick-to-itiveness come from for you? And how would you encourage others who are trying to grow that muscle, that reflexive muscle, to like push through? Where's that come for you? And maybe share some inspiration for others for that.
I think it's because of the people that depend on you, right? So with the food delivery business, we had, when we got to our biggest, we probably had 50 or so delivery drivers, 10 office staff. So that's 60 people that are relying on you to put food on the table at home. If you fail and close down the business, think of those 60 lives and their families. So now you're talking 200 people affected because you couldn't get something done.
Right.
And I think I used that as my motivation. Now with the stadium, we've got tens of thousands of fans in New Mexico. We've got fans outside of the state, around the country, and around the world, really, that rely on this team. This shield that I wear proudly every day represents so much more than me, Ron Patel. I am the tiny piece of it, right? It represents the people of New Mexico. We're in a place where, people are told they're not good enough for our city's not good enough to have the nice things that other big cities have. We don't have a lot of great things to celebrate. When you're known for Breaking Bad and that's about it, that's not great. Like, it's funny, but it's really not. When you're told you don't deserve the nice things that the big cities have, this stands as a point of pride for so many people. And people rely on us to be there to give them that something to be excited about. And so if we were not, which we will not fail, but if we were to fail and getting the stadium going, I feel like we're letting hundreds of thousands of people down. There's 2 million people in New Mexico. I feel like I'm letting them all down. And so it's not about you. Forget yourself. Think of the people that rely on you, your company, your people, the service you provide. Think of those people, and even more importantly, the families that those people are supporting, And there's all the motivation you need to get through it and to solve the problem.
So in talking through your story, your journey that's led you back to where you are now, a father, husband, leading a soccer club here, there in New Mexico, serial entrepreneur, etc. For you, what are some routines or habits that you have developed over the years that have aided you in finding success?
So I think people first. The only sustainable advantage that one business can have over another is its people. And if you have the right people, you're going to do well. And so I'm a true believer in servant leadership. And so I have a team of leaders that on the org chart work underneath me, but I look at it as my job is to provide them everything they need to be successful. And if you treat your people as your customers or your clients, it can go a long way. And they have people that report to them that needs resources to do the job that they do. And everyone knows that everyone's worked a job at some point where they don't feel like they had the resources to fully do their job or the ability to fully do their job, and something that was outside of their own purview. There's nothing more frustrating than that. And who wants to work for a place that does that? And if you're responsible for your business and you can't give your people that, then take a hard look in the mirror and figure out how you can provide that. So I think people is a really big thing, and the way you treat them. Same goes with your vendors. Like, don't treat vendors like shit. Like, vendors, without your vendors, you can't have your business. Right. And so when many people, they're my vendors, I can treat them like servants. No, I treat them like customers too, because when stuff happens and shit hits the fan, a lot of time it's your vendors you have to go to and say, I need a solid. Can you do it? And if I've been treating them like crap for 2 years, they're not going to come through for me. But if I've been treating them like gold and I say, I need a solid, oh, absolutely. Yeah. What do you need? Right. And your vendors come through for you. So I think it's your people, your vendors. And then I guess the third one would be communication. So written communication is what helps me be successful. I am very OCD about my email inbox to a fault. I have this stupid goal every day that when I go home to kiss my wife and baby at the end of the day, I can't have a scrolling arrow on my inbox. And so everything in my email inbox has a folder. And when I've responded to something or I've taken care of something, it goes into that folder. And if not, it stays there and it's staring at me saying, you better get me done. I do pride myself in getting back to everyone in a timely fashion. Hopefully I got back to you via email in a good time.
Oh yeah, you were great.
Because it's everything's important to somebody. So no matter, it's a valuable lesson I learned from a friend of mine, Tylee, who was in the military. He was at one point he was the highest ranking Marine in England. Okay. He's that tea with the Queen. He's a great guy. Tylee Nunick. He taught me this one time. He's like, he was in Japan working, and a Marine turned in a request to go home to see his wife, and he put it on the pile of papers. And the papers came. The next day he got to the papers, and what he realized was he had waited too long because it had to be in by 12 o'clock. And he missed the birth of his child because it wasn't important enough for him to get. It was a valuable lesson he learned. I'm probably butchering the story, but the lesson was everything, no matter how minuscule it seems to you, is important to somebody else.
Right.
And you don't know how important that could be to someone. So I treat every bit of written communication that way. So if someone's relying on me for an answer, I hate to wait on people for answers. So I don't want to be the person that you're waiting on for answers. So written communication, being organized, there's nothing that gives me more anxiety than an inbox that's just got all kinds of stuff. And I get 400 or 500 emails a day. So I have dedicated power hours where I'm going in, responding to things. I am guilty, and we all need to improve on lots of things, right? So I am guilty of too much in my email inbox. I need to take a step back, go work on the business a little bit, and then go back to the inbox. So I can be more efficient. I learned that from my realtor friend who has really good time management skills. But I would say that it's your people, your vendors, and your written communication can help you a lot.
So as we're kind of coming to a close, is there a piece of advice that you would share with someone who maybe they're dreaming of starting and owning their own business? Maybe they're dreaming of doing something similar to you and working in a sports franchise or at a soccer club and and doing something for their community that's, outside of the norm, maybe because the city they're in or the sport they're dreaming of participating in. Is there one piece of advice you would share with someone who has a dream of doing something out of the box?
So I'll share with you the best piece of advice that anyone ever gave me. It was, don't take advice from anybody, but listen to their experiences and apply it to your situation. And perspective is everything, right? Everyone's different. We all live in different markets. I live in Albuquerque, which is different from Phoenix, which is different from Dallas, which is different from Dubuque, Iowa. So we all look at things with different lenses. And so advice can often be more of a generalization.
Sure.
So I always like to tell people, I'm not going to give you any advice. I'm going to share my experiences with you and see how you can apply them to your situation. And so I would say if you're looking to get into the latter part of the question, if you're looking to get into sports, don't wait, just go get into it, whether that's doing an internship. I do get randomly people reach out to me, hey, I'd love to do this. I love that because they're taking a chance, right? They're taking a risk by reaching out to the president of a soccer club and saying, I want to help and I want to learn. And I love that. Every time I can't always give that person an opportunity, but every time I can, I make sure we do because they took the initiative to reach out and do that. So if you're looking to get into sports, go out there and just figure it out. And so to do that, you can get an internship. You can sign with sports teams are always looking for help on game days. And that's how you can go in, work, whether it's the merchandise stand or wristbanding people at the gates or whatever. And then you start to network, right? Find your common denominators with people that work within the organization. Ooh, that person looks like they are important. I should meet them. Hi, I'm Ron. I'm the new intern here today. I told you I did it as a doorman at Acme Roadhouse when I was in college. The reason I picked Acme Roadhouse is because everyone in Tempe used to go to that little bar, nightclub. We had back, the early UFC fighters that were in Tempe back then used to go there. Business guys would come in, guys that owned all the restaurants and the nightclubs would come in. That was the place for the service industry. And back then that was important to me, right? So I wanted to meet these people. I was the doorman. I was the one that greeted them. And I was just the doorman. You could look at it that way. But I was also the first face they saw every time they came in. So going in, working a game day, finding how you can get into the organization, keep an eye on job boards. You can sign up for notifications to get when jobs are posted. There's a service, a website called Teamwork Online, where you can post jobs in sports all over the country. And so I would say in sports, in general, look, if you're looking to start your own business, I think first of all, find something you're passionate about, but also understand that just because you're passionate about something or good at something doesn't necessarily mean you should start a business on it. You want to make sure that you're up for it. It's a great book. Most entrepreneurs have read it by Michael Gerber. It's called The E-Myth, and it talks about this very thing. And just because you're great at baking cakes doesn't mean you should open a bakery. Now, maybe you will, and you'll be really successful, but you have to understand that once you start your own bakery, you're no longer in the business of baking cakes. You're in the business of selling and marketing baking cakes. No matter what business you're in, you have to acquire and retain customers, clients. We call them fans, whatever business that is. So you have to have a strategy to acquire customers, clients, fans, and retain clients, fans. Because you do all this work to get them and then they never come back again. Now you got to go do all the work again, right?
Yeah, shooting yourself in the foot for sure.
Yeah, so I think those are the experiences I would share is acquiring customers and retaining customers is really the business you're getting into. It's not making the product or providing the service that you want to give. People ask me all the time, would I do it all over again with the food delivery company? I'm not sure I would. It was a low profit margin business. We caught a break, but I do believe you make your own luck in life. And I think how hard we worked over the years. I got involved in industry trade associations. I took leadership positions. I did a lot of stuff for free. I was the president of our restaurant delivery trade association for 5 years. Put on a conference in Vegas once a year, did all that work, never got compensated a dime for it. However, I did end up merging with those guys that were way smarter than we were, and we sold our company. So I did get paid for it. I just didn't get paid up front for it.
Right.
So I'm a big advocate of doing stuff for free so you can get to where you want to go. And then I wrote a book too in 2013. I authored a book. It's on Amazon if you ever want a bad laugh. It's called How to Take an Idea from a Cocktail Napkin to Reality. It's called That's When It Hit Me. And so that was a project I did because at the time I was looking to get speaking gigs all around New Mexico, and I found that authors would always get speaking gigs. So I went and wrote a book, and I think it's still on Amazon. I haven't checked. I get a royalty check once a year for like $25. That's it. So again, the book doesn't make me any money, but it
But
opened
it opened
doors
doors.
to go get those speaking gigs. And
Yes.
back then we didn't have podcasts, so this is great. You get to connect now with different audiences from all over the place. But look, I'm on LinkedIn, so anyone that's looking to start a business or get into sports, connect with me. I'm pretty much as you see me here. This is who I am.
So I appreciate you joining the show and sharing so many great experiences, ideas, even advice, even though
Yeah,
that
there
was
was some
your piece of
advice
advice. But it was great. I loved it. Is there, you said LinkedIn, is there anywhere else where people could find you or connect with you or follow the club itself with your day-to-day work? Could you share for the audience those links?
Yeah, so New Mexico United, the club. Look, I love talking about our club. If you don't mind me plugging it real quick.
Go for it.
Look, we started it in January of 2018. We started the business. We kicked off in 2019. It's all the spreadsheets told us it wouldn't work. All the spreadsheets said, do not start a professional soccer club in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's no reason why they should work here. We're the first in like homelessness and addiction and lowest in income and the bottom of the list when it comes to education and all this. It's just like, it's not supposed to work here. There's no money here. There's no Fortune 500 companies based here. A professional sports team should not work here. All the spreadsheets told us that. And I'll never forget my boss, Peter Trevisani, who was the majority owner of the team, who came from the finance world. So you would think that he would hold spreadsheets in high regard. He told me one day, he was like, you know what? Sometimes you have to ignore the spreadsheets. He's like, but focus on not the reasons to say no, but focus why are the reasons to say yes to something. And we found that the reasons to say yes to New Mexico United was we wanted to create a rallying point, a point of pride for New Mexicans. And we wanted to bring New Mexicans together in ways they've never been brought together before. And that's our mission statement, by the way, to bring New Mexicans together in ways they've never been brought together before and to become an agent for positive change. So the word soccer is not in there anywhere. That's just a vehicle that we use. And so we came into the league. I looked at the average attendance and I looked where we needed to be. Oh my God, there's no way we're going to get there according to these numbers. And we've been in the top 3 in attendance every year for the first 6 years. Plan on doing it again this year. We're now number 2 in the league, I believe, in the corporate sponsorship dollars without a Fortune 500 company based here. I think because of the excitement and the power of what the brand has become, companies want to be aligned with it. And then the thing that's most impressive is our merchandise. We're first place in merchandise sales every year in the league by a country mile. I don't tell you this to brag. It's proud. It's really humbling to see the way that the state has reacted. Everyone's like, oh, you're going to have to sell shirts for $10 because nobody has any money there. Well, that's people that don't understand New Mexico, right? People have plenty of money for things they value. And things, especially this younger generation now, pays more for experiences than they do for widgets. And so we provide a cool game day experience. People will be willing to pay for that. And while our ticket prices are fairly low compared to the rest of the league, our merchandise is not exactly cheap. Like it's $30 for a T-shirt. It's $90 for a jersey. And we sold over 8,000 jerseys last year in little old New Mexico. But a lot of them were sold not because of the soccer, and it wasn't because of the goals and making the playoffs and having a home play. It was sold because this represents the entire state, and this represents what we can export to the world. And it represents hope. And my boss, Peter, actually gives a great presentation. I think it's on YouTube called The Economics of Hope and how hope really does have a value. Because if you can provide hope to people, it's way more valuable than money and what it can do. And I think that's what the club has done. So going into our 7th season, battling for the stadium, like I said earlier, we will get there. We've got more investors that are lined up, and our existing ownership group is putting their money where their mouth is too. So I'm lucky enough to get to lead this thing, and I tell every new employee, I'm actually about to go into another orientation with the new hires. Your boss is not me, and your boss is not Peter. Your boss is the people of New Mexico. That's who you work for, and that's who you're accountable to. And so let's not forget that, and we think about that with every decision that we make, is that we work for them, right? It's not for me, and it's not for Peter, and that's the the thing that will guide us. And we plan on being here 100+ years. So the club will be here when you and I are both gone, and it'll be passed on to other people. But it will always be a staple of New Mexico.
Well, I love it, Ron. I love always getting the chance to talk to you and reconnect with you. Thanks for sharing your story with the audience. There's so much good wisdom that you've shared. Best of luck on the season with New Mexico United as well coming forward. If you are interested in learning more about MyJo and all the things we have going on, other podcast episodes, etc., you can learn more at MyJo XP across all social platforms and myjoxp.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.